What is up, Cobra Kai fans? Welcome back to the channel. I'm so sorry, we had some technical difficulties, so I was trying to sort that out, but we are back on, so it's all good now. My guest today is Curtis Bonds Baker, as I did say, who is a professional photographer who's worked on Cobra Kai season 3 and 4 and has a big portfolio in this industry. Curtis, it's great to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here again.
Of course, second time. It's almost like another appearance. So yeah, when we were before all the technical issues, we were just saying about your first day on set of Cobra Kai, from the very first day you were involved. So just please continue from that first day of your experience.
Yeah, just I was just glad to have a small part in it at the beginning. When someone in our position, a stills photographer, comes into a show, and if we're just shooting, a lot of people start off shooting props photos and small photo shoots like that before you get the show, as you say. So I was happy to be there. I would have loved to spend more time with those guys, and I do my thing and I get in, get out, and go on to the next job. And then when season 3 came around, they asked me if I wanted to come in and shoot some stills. Of course I do. Knowing it was at the time on YouTube, semi-popular show, but I knew it. I don't know why it couldn't have been more popular, and I'm glad that Netflix picked it up. But I was still honored to be asked to come out there and shoot a few photos, and that turned into a bunch of days. And I basically finished up season 3 and shot a lot of the good stuff of the Dee Snider concert and Elizabeth Shue coming in, and a lot of cool key moments towards the end of season 3.
Yeah, you had some there's some pretty cool I've seen on the Netflix site, like the images that you took, and there probably some, as you were saying prior, like that must have been a really surreal moment that you were shooting all these guys, like being a fan of the Karate Kid growing up, and you're now shooting these guys on the camera. Like, how did it feel, like going from just growing up with the Karate Kid and then working with these guys on set?
Well, in all honesty, you sort of, I don't know, it was not quite 30 something years, but goes by, and you sort of forget about, until there's a new show is resurfacing, about the Karate Kid. And I'm like, that's kind of a cool idea. It's honestly, the first few days is work. I mean, you don't jump up and start talking to everybody because you don't know them. You don't know how some actors are talky, and some, want to do their thing and walk off and do their own, practice their lines, etc. You just don't start talking to people right away. But after a few days there, I could tell that they were, tight-knit crew, family, all the cast were friends with the crew. And I sort of settled in pretty quickly because they're very accepting. I remember watching the show a little bit before I started and was like, oh, these guys, some of these actors these characters seem so rude. I hope they're, not rude in real life. And nobody is. Everybody's super nice in real life. And that's why it's sort of fun to see some of the villains, joking around with the good guys in between takes. And of course, being in this industry, a lot of it takes a lot of the magic out of it for me. When I watch TV and movies, I know too much, or I pay attention to lighting, I pay attention to things going on in the background more than I should. But it was still great to be there, and I didn't expect it to go any further than that, my season 3 time. But being asked to come back for 4 was obviously a real honor. So happy to be there for that.
For sure. So before you went or when you started to work with Netflix on Cobra Kai, and then obviously with both seasons, when did you start your passion for photography and kind of get into this?
I feel like I've had a short career compared to some people. I say I've been shooting professionally and seriously for about 11 years now. I feel like a lot of guys that are in my position may have been going longer. Some have been going shorter. I mean, I know a lot of people that have only been doing it for 5 years and they're already shooting on some shows. But I had a different position in the movie world for a little while. I was doing video assist, where basically I just provide a live image and, record takes and playback if I needed to. Did that for about 3 years. I sort of fell into that by accident. I was just working with a friend that did it, and he had me come on to assist him. But one of my first movies, I remember watching the still photographer walk around and like, that looks like a cool job. You got cameras and you don't have to talk to anybody, and you're not here every single day, and you come in, you come out, and you get to photograph these people and build a portfolio of famous faces and whatnot. But so I sort of like that idea of not having to have to report to anybody, right, immediately. I could just sort of come in and do my job and give it my personal touch, and hopefully that would take off and become something. So took about a year and a half to switch, to turn down some jobs and then to start getting stills jobs. But I really wasn't even a photographer until I took a big motorcycle trip to Alaska, from Atlanta up to Alaska, back down to Key West in 2008.
Yeah.
So that kind of sparked my passion for photography. I had a friend that brought a nice camera, and I had a little point and shoot. And on the way back to Atlanta, I actually bought a Nikon DSLR and started taking better pictures. And I had a neighbor that lived next door to me that really kind of carried me along, and taught me how to be a professional and how to take a proper picture and not worry about Photoshop, just take a good picture, because he came from a film background. And it just sort of slowly snowballs into a bigger, like, this is real. I start buying the gear. I remember my first paycheck going out and buying a second camera body on a show, so I wouldn't have to worry about switching lenses in between takes.
Yeah.
And back then we had to have soundproof boxes around our cameras to be on set, because it didn't have mirrorless. They didn't have silent cameras back then, so we had to muffle the clicks. So I had to buy 2 of those, and then to match my cameras. And I started buying stuff to show up on set, just to, at least appear professional, appear ready. And it's a slow climb. It's a slow burn. You work on little shows, you work on slightly bigger shows. You may go back down to a smaller show. And then someone maybe hands you a show that they can't take, and another photographer gives it to you, and it ends up being a really big break. And I've had that a couple times.
It must be quite an awesome journey, because like you go from show to show, and I can only think like when you're working on different projects, like the photography might vary slightly.
A little bit. I mean, it does. I mean, every job's a little different. My main job of covering the set, shooting all the scenes, shooting behind the scenes, it's kind of the same thing. Every day I show up, I know what to do if it's a brand new show, whether or not a certain actor, doesn't like being photographed, or if you're on a dark show that there's very little light or small spaces. Those are the things that's what makes my job hard. Just certain sets, certain days are darker or tighter, where there may not be room for me, or if there's an actor that doesn't want me, doesn't want any extra distractions, that may make it difficult. But usually I'm at the point in my career where I'm like, all right, well, if you don't want to be photographed, I'll let the network know, and they'll handle it, or they'll understand that I can't get in there. So I used to really put a lot of stress on myself I've got to get the shot. I got to get the shot no matter what. And I also didn't want to be a jerk. I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I wanted the camera crew to accept me. There's a dolly grip pushing a dolly. There's a boom operator. We're all in the same space. There's 5 or 6 of us that share a very small space. And to throw me in there, my job's important. I don't feel like my job is so necessary that I have to be there every second. But that's why I try to get in. I shoot wide and I shoot tight on the first take. And then if I feel like I've got enough, I can back out and let everybody else do their job with more space. But it's just something you pick up with experience of, what the day is going to be like. And if I need to be standing there the whole time, or if I can get what I need to get and get out of there. It's every day is a little different, but the job itself is kind of the same.
So like it's pretty much a very consistent thing. It's just that you're like at project to project, and you kind of just know what you're doing. With obviously you have to take these photos in certain ways. Like, do you get like an objective, and like when you take these images, like how do you know it's achieving that objective that it needs, like what you're taking, like if you know what I mean?
No shot list is, if that's a lot of people will say that people give you a shot list. I mean, on some shows I've got actual shot list. Make sure you get this and this. But I'm now, I mean, with my Netflix contact that I work on this show, she's great, and she says, go do your thing. It's a great feeling, because I can go in and I'll read a script. I know the story. I know what's going to happen. And then every day we get a call sheet, and that'll give us a quick description of what the scene is. And if I know it's, this actor fights with this actor, you're going to want to make sure you have a good picture of them squaring off, maybe, fists up, a little bit of a emotion in their face. And you sort of, because that's how I think. I don't think I don't think in motion. I think in still frames. So if I think what's
Right.
going to show this scene, I mean, I'm just thinking of a quick picture of Ralph and Billy shaking hands after, sanding the sparring deck, and Billy spits in his hand, and Billy and Ralph just kind of looks at, he's like, I'm not shaking that hand. So you watch the rehearsal, you watch the first take. And if you see something like, like that expression on Ralph's face, I got to make sure I get that and the hand sticking out. But that's all happening, lightning fast in my brain, and inside my viewfinder, I'm making sure I've got the right composition. You don't want to go too tight. You don't want to go too wide because it may take away from the emotion. So all that stuff just comes with experience and knowing. After coming back to a show, you know what they used the previous season. So well, I'll shoot more of that style, or that crop, or that tightness on on the actors, and you sort of know what to get. It becomes a little bit more of a routine. As long as you know what's happening in the scene, you know what to capture. Yeah.
Is there a specific shot or moment you've had during your career where you're just like, wow, this image just feels, everything about it is amazing, and like you feel like there's like that highlight for you? Is there any specific shot?
It happens a lot. I mean, not a lot. I don't say like I take amazing pictures every time, but the one picture that was released earlier on of the season 4, with all the kids' faces coming through the sliding door of the Miyagi dojo. As soon as I took it, I was like, oh no, oh, this is it. Like, this is the shot. And I knew that I felt like that was going to be something that was going to be used, because you have so many faces, especially crowded into a tight spot. And I think
Yeah.
what really sells is multiple actors in one photo, which is not easy to get, because not everybody's going to be facing the same direction. If people are talking in a circle, you're only going to get half the faces looking at you. A lot of time, at least on this show, you have a lot of lineups when they're fighting, or when they're in their formations. You'll get a lot of faces. Usually they're spread out, so you have to go real wide, and you may risk getting, movie gear, set gear in your shot. But that picture in particular, after I took it, I was like, this is it. And I shot every take just to make sure, is it going to get any better? And sometimes it gets better because you move a little bit, you maybe get one more face in there. But usually, there's times where I'll take a picture and I'm like, this is it. And that's sometimes even if I feel like I've got it, I walk away and not try to top it. You just want to you go back and look and make sure you put the photos on the computer and just zoom in and like, okay, it's sharp. Everybody's lit well. You can see everybody's face. Eyes are open. So yeah, it happens a lot. I'm not going to say it happens every day, but that's when I come home from work and I've taken a handful of good shots. I'm happy. If I come home and everything's dark and blurry and I just don't feel like they were amazing, then I was like, all right, we'll try again tomorrow. But
Yeah. You've done so many amazing shots there. I have to say that, like, all the images they would release for promo, I mean, they're all beautiful. I love the colors. I love
Thank you.
the way it comes across. So yeah, man, I have to say that. And yeah, I love that shot in particular that you mentioned, just seeing all the students, because it's also a very big moment in the show, because I didn't realize that was the moment. Terry Silver's reunion with Daniel. So I was just kind of thinking, is it just something with Johnny and Daniel bickering? But no, it's even bigger.
That's part of how they release these photos. They don't want to show the other side. They don't want to show what those kids were looking at. Luckily, they were looking in my direction, which was great, because that helps them. Helps the eyes. That's why I stand next to camera or near camera, or the big cameras, so I can usually, if they're supposed to be looking in a certain direction, sometimes I get to be the eye line and I'll be right in they'll look exactly at my camera, which to me makes the photo a little more, little more cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, with all these types of shots, do you feel you prefer like taking more like landscapey types of shots? Is it really just dependent on obviously what you're shooting?
It depends. I'm my personal work is people. I feel like shooting people, you're going to get a different photo every time. there's many great landscape photographers, but if I go out west and take a picture at Arches National Park, I'm going to get a good photo. But is it amazing? I don't know. I feel like every time you take a picture of a person, you're going to get something unique, different, hopefully make them happy. And when you're
Mm.
on set, you're shooting faces, familiar faces, famous people, whatever, and they're in hair and makeup, and they're lit. So usually you're going to get something nice out of it. I prefer to go a little tighter, I guess, in my framing instead of going super wide. I only go wide when I have to sort of, I want to show where they are, or make sure everybody knows that they're talking to this person. If there's two actors talking to each other, I try not to just shoot the one. I make sure you see who he's talking to. Unless the camera shot, the big camera shot is over the shoulder of one actor looking onto that person, I'll make sure I get that. But that's not usually what they end up using. It's more of a group of two or three looking in one direction is kind of the magic shots. But yeah, you want to show if they're wearing a gi that has patches on it, you want to make sure you see the patches, that kind of stuff. But every once in a while you zoom in and you get a nice headshot, framing in case they ever want to use that for something else. So I shoot a lot, but not everything gets seen and not everything gets used.
Right. So when you like we were saying about this earlier on with you got your objective, and you kind of have all these shots and everything. Would you say most of the shots that you take kind of get used, or there's
No,
like it's
exact
like a million?
opposite. If on a typical day, if it's not a fighting scene, let's just say I shoot 1,000 photos. I mean, 1,000 clicks. Not saying they're all great. That's just what I come home with. I sit down on the computer for about an hour and a half at the end of the day, and I go through all the pictures and I take anything out that's a repeat or eyes are closed or out of focus, all the test shots, stuff that there's a bird flying through the air, I'll shoot the bird, whatever. That stuff doesn't necessarily go straight to Netflix if it's not part of the show.
Yeah.
So I'll go through and maybe weed that out to about 500, let's say. So there's 500 pictures that are in focus, that are good, that are sharp, could be used for something, and they may still pull out 2, 3, that get used. So there's a lot of stuff, on the cutting room floor, as they would say. There's plenty of stuff out there, but if they're looking to showcase this scene, they want to pick the best photo for that scene, and there's no need to put 10 photos of the same scene out, because that'll just be oversaturation and no one wants to see that much, maybe. But they do a good job. They do a good job of picking out the important stuff. And there's a shot of Ralph and and Griffin, his the LaRusso dad and son, sitting on the couch, and the yellow Cobra Kai sweatshirts on the edge of the couch. And I made sure I kept that on the edge of the frame, because that tells part of the story of him stealing the sweatshirt, I guess, from Kenny. I think that's where he got it from. But that you want to make sure you see those little details when we're shooting, because if I zoomed in and just had the two faces, you'd be a photo of two people talking, but you wouldn't know why they're talking, and that's why you gotta think zoom out a little bit. Maybe I'll get that sweatshirt in there too.
It was a great idea as well, because myself, loads of fans were theorizing just based on that hoodie.
Yeah,
like,
I remember. I occasionally get on the Reddit, the subreddit for Cobra Kai, and I just like to see people's theories. And I remember reading about the who's going to win the tournament, the All Valley, and there were a couple people that were spot on, and a lot of people that crazy ideas, but there was a couple people that figured it out, I guess, just by doing the math of they haven't won anything in a while, and they deserve it. So it was pretty cool to read everybody's theories.
Would you say there's any theories that you've read that were just they were like so like far away from the like maybe based on a shot you've done, and it's just like you read that and just laughed, like they have no idea?
Nothing comes to mind particularly, but I do remember reading something like, these guys are just taking way too much out of this photo. Like, I mean, because I'm there and I see everything happen, and I don't think of it as hard as the fans are thinking about it. I just shoot it because that's what's happening, and I want to make sure I tell the story of the scene. But when there's no other context, yeah, people are going to piece it together in their own mind, and maybe they'll make up a story. But that's what makes it fun. I mean, that's what that's the attraction to the show, and keeps people waiting and wanting to see more. And I think they do it well. They just tease you a little bit with a few pictures and make you wait to watch the whole show.
Yeah, for sure. It must feel quite fun to have that kind of feel where you take a photo and you're like, you know, people are going to mention this. They're going to
Yeah.
think about that in the shot, like the hoodie, for example.
Right.
Within these photos, though, like talking about them, about the style and what it's like visually. What's like the components of taking a great photo? Like, what do you look for?
I mean, the basics are exposure. You want to make sure it's bright enough and you can see who you're shooting. You want to make sure your composition is at least. I usually try to match what the camera is seeing first. I want to make sure the color, the white balance of the pictures matches what the camera is shooting, because the color of the lights are dictating whether it's sunlight coming through the windows or if it's a light bulb in a house. That changes. So I make sure I look at the monitor on the camera when I first come onto set, and I just see if it says 5600 degrees Kelvin. That means we're at daylight. 3200, tungsten, like a light bulb in the house. So I match that first, make sure it looks the same color. Then I'll typically try to match their framing first, and then once I feel like I've got that, then I'll zoom in and out and get my own stuff. But you just want to make sure it's a clean picture, and you don't have the back of somebody's head. You want to make sure there's faces. There's just general photography rules of just making sure it's a properly exposed, level. I'm real big on symmetry. When I can get, if the camera is dead center and I can't be dead center, then I'll usually maybe try to wait till after they're done and say, let me just grab one second and get where the camera is and snap off. Just because I feel like a good symmetrical shot it's more soothing to me. So I like to see that. There's been times where the camera will be in that center position, and then the next shot the camera will go off to one angle, and I'll just put myself in that center position for the next take, and hopefully I can get the same shot. But I like to take stuff that I like. I mean, I want to look at it also. So hopefully
Yeah.
that if I like it, then hopefully everybody else will like it. And I'm much more of a critic for my own work than anybody else is going to be. So if I'm happy, then maybe the people will be happy.
Yeah. It's like you were saying, you kind of, it's great that you had that freedom to just like do your thing, and like you can take these great photos. You're not only just happy with them, but your contact will be like, yeah, you're doing your thing, and that's great
Right.
because of your experience and how you take these. With it, like, so run me through like a typical day where like the first thing you do when you get on set, and just towards the end of the day after, like, or before you like start to process the images, just when you're
Right.
on set.
If let's just say the call sheet says general crew call, everybody be there at 7 o'clock, and we won't start shooting until about 8, because it takes about that hour to set up cameras and move carts around, get everything ready. So I typically would show up about half an hour maybe after the crew call, because there's no reason for me to be there photographing people eating breakfast and getting off a truck. It's not worth the time. So I'll usually come in about that time, or right about when we're first start shooting. And if the first scene may not be as important, I may wait a little bit and come in after that. I'll get on the camera truck. I'm part of the camera crew. So I go in the camera truck, drop my big backpack, and I put my straps on and 3 cameras and put whatever I need to put on, and walk out and just walk straight to set. And I'm basically ready to go. I try to have my cameras pretty much cleaned out and set up from the day before. I'll make sure I adjust for the light of that day, because it's going to be different from the day before. And then pretty much just start clicking away. And I'll if I'm there for a rehearsal, I'll sort of stand back and watch, because I want to make sure I know which way the camera is moving. If the camera and a dolly are going to come back 15 feet, I'm standing there, I don't want to be that guy that gets run over by the train. So that's a big part of it. I tell a lot of new still photographers, I'm like, make sure you watch rehearsals and make sure you see where the camera is going and where the boom operator's plans to be, because it's a big dance with all of us out there. You just don't want to be the guy that screwed up a shot and messes up the day for everybody else. So we'll shoot all day. I'll shoot the scene. If I feel like I've got what I need, I'll step off. Maybe I'll go to the camera truck and put my images on the computer and put them on a hard drive so they're safe. If I've got time, I'll start going through them a little bit, but typically I'll shoot all day, dump cards, reformat cards, shoot more. And by the end of the day, I'll go home and I will sit on the computer and essentially just go through every picture, and I color code them as, this is keep, this is trash. And I go through and I take that bunch of photos that are good and I put them in another folder and I rename them and make sure they're all in order. put them in the folder depending on what episode we're shooting, make sure everything's labeled correctly, and then those get uploaded to a site at the end of the day. And then I send an email to the girl that receives those photos, and I say, hey, here's 550 photos, make sure that they're all in there. And then she says, great, they're all in there, and I'm done for the day. And I reset, start it again the next day. It's fun. There's long, boring, tedious moments of it, but that's all part of any job, really. And I don't love sitting on the computer for an hour to 2 hours a night, but that's part of the job. And I'd rather be taking pictures than going through them. But at least I don't have to actually edit the pictures. I just sort. I'll pull out a few that I think are good, or maybe want to keep into a folder for later for myself, and I'll edit those. But that's usually 2 or 3 photos a day. But yeah, so it's a long day, but it's not as long as most of the other crew. I'm usually cut off at about 10 hours, and they'll be working for 12 or 13 hours a day, and they definitely put in a lot more physical work than I have to. But standing around all day with 3 cameras is not always easy, but it's what I signed up for.
Yeah, definitely. That's 10 hours. Wow. I feel
That's
like
10 hours is a short day. That's
for
an
like
easy
an
day.
ordinary person like myself, like if I was to do photography, wow, that would be like the longest ever day for me.
Well, that's why
But
people say, they sort of don't realize that I have a camera in my hand, all day, and I don't even think about turning the knobs and adjusting, and it's just such a second nature for me. And they're all basically the same camera, so they're all set up correctly, set up the same. And so when I talk to people about, stop down your shutter, and they're like, how do I do that? And I'm like, that's just, I don't even think about it, because it's like driving a truck. You know where every button is. And so that's me with my cameras. They're just my hands at that point when I'm on set.
yeah.
And I love it. I mean, they're toys and they're work tools, but I love cameras. And I mean, every once in a while I have to step away and pick up a film camera to reset my brain. But and you do get tired of shooting. I mean, after we wrapped this last season, I came home and put all my cameras in a bag and hid them for myself for a little while. But just needed a break. I mean, physically it gets hard. I have elbow pain and wrist pain from lifting it up every day, all day. But hey, it's all right. I'm still here.
Yeah. With apart from when you're not doing photography, how do you like to keep yourself busy when you're not shooting? Because obviously that can get, like you said, a bit tedious, and
Right.
you obviously need a break from that. What do you like to do?
I'm a runner. I run. I ride bikes. I used to almost went professional on the road bike back in the early 2090s. So I still ride a little bit. I run a lot.
Oh, nice.
I had to find a way to shut off my brain, because a creative brain is a dangerous thing sometimes. So I started running, and I was doing trail running, and I got into ultras, where I was running 30-mile races and 50-mile races, and it kept getting longer and longer, having like how far do I have to go to turn my brain off? And there was this one moment where I was running down a very steep hill with a friend, and it was super rocky, and all you're worried about is where your feet are going. And that was the one time I remember not thinking about photography or work or my career, or how can I get better to get hired more. Like it's just a typical freelance creative battle of the gears are always turning. I wake up early because I start thinking about what's going on that day, or how I'm going to light this next shoot. So yeah, with staying healthy is super important for me. I cannot. I hate the industry that it takes up so much time from everybody else that they don't have time to come home and work out. No one wants to come home after 12 hours and go for a jog. And everybody wants to usually they have to go to sleep and wake up and do it again. And it's a tough industry for that. And there's a lot of unhealthy people. There's a lot of people that pass away because of their health. I mean, it's just a lot. It's not the best world to be in unless you're crazy passionate for filmmaking. And I'm lucky to have that the hours and the days that I have, because I'm not necessarily there every single day, and I'm not there all day long, and I have enough time to balance. I hang out with my daughter. And running is my outlet at the moment. So, and personal shoots when I can, if I'm off, I still like to shoot stuff, but I like to be able to control the lighting, and I like to be able to direct. And if I'm on set, I just kind of take photos of what's being, filmed in front of me without much control of how to change it. So,
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a healthy way of keeping your mind right whilst not shooting. Exercise, physical health, very important to stay on top of that as well. And like you said, like just being in front of that lens all day can get quite tedious.
Yeah, it's just it is like any other job. It's a great job. I love it. I want to continue to do it every day. But I definitely want to make sure I have time to balance, because I mean, physically, there's days where you hurt. My lower back hurts, my arms hurt. You're lugging around. I mean, my cameras are together. The three of them are only about 15 pounds, but that's still just a lot of stuff to be hanging on your shoulders all day.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice to throw everything off at the end of the day and pack the bag. But I'm not digging a hole all day, and I'm not, handling heavy loads of dirt, or I'm not carrying a bunch of tools. And I was a carpenter for years, so I know what it's like to do all that stuff. But I'm much happier with my backpack full of cameras, and it's all self-contained, and I can hop on any show if I need to. But yeah, just staying healthy mentally and physically is super important.
You say you have 3 cameras. Which camera is like, what are they for exactly? Like when you're taking shoots, like I'm guessing it's for like obviously different type of shots, but like what is each one for?
The camera, I have a camera on my left. I have basically a double strap from a company called Black Rapid. I have a double strap, and then I have a single strap as a third, kind of across the body. So on my left hip is there's Sony A9 body on my left with a 24-70 lens, so I can get the wide shots. You can zoom in a little bit, but basically that's more to show the whole scene. On the right hip, I've got the 70mm to 200mm for the tighter, just faces or just shoulder, chest up kind of shots. Or if I can't be I can't move myself up closer to the action because the camera is there or the light's there, I have to stay where I'm forced to stay, and I have to zoom in. So that long lens does a lot more work. It gets most of the shots. And my third camera up front is another Sony, but it's an A7R4, which is a huge, like 62 megapixel, really nice camera. And I usually have a prime lens on it. So I have like 85 1.4. And I typically use that for really nice, just singled out portraits. If it's dark out, it looks really pretty, and it looks more cinematic with that lens. You get a really nice, blurred background bokeh. And those pictures stand out a lot more because I feel like they're larger files. So there's a lot more resolution. They look a little more cinematic. So I try to shoot a lot with that. And that's typically, I walk up to somebody and say, give me that same look again. And, I got some really good pictures that people haven't seen yet, from, more recent shoots that I'm looking forward to getting out. But it's a great camera. So I have those 3 to those are just my tools, and I know exactly which one to grab and when I need to. And that's why I can shoot the scene wide. I can shoot it tight, and then I can get out of the way.
For sure. That sounds really, really like complex in how you do it. It's not simply like,
it's sort of a slow build. I mean, I started off with 1 camera, and then when I could get my second camera, I had 2, and I'm used to having 2, and that's really to have the wide lens and the tight lens. And now that these cameras are mirrorless and smaller and much lighter weight, I've sometimes I'll have a 4th camera hanging around my neck for if I'll be shooting just black and white or something. Because again, they're tools, but they're toys for me. And if it's not super heavy, I don't mind walking around with it. And I brought a little disposable film camera to set, and just walked around and said, look over here, and I'd click them. So, one day when those get developed, they may be kind of cool shots. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
Does it feel weird, like, because as you're a photographer, does it ever feel a bit strange to you when someone wants to take a photo of you, or if you ask for a photo from anyone?
I almost never ask for a photo unless I'm doing something crazy, or I'm in a weird place, like up on a ladder, something that's not. I don't mind being photographed. Sometimes people will send me one of my mates on the crew will snap a picture of me and just send it to me while I'm sitting there, which always gives me a good laugh. But it's usually me in some weird position or hunched over because I'm tall and I'm leaned over to shoot somebody shorter than I am. So if I'm not ready, I love seeing photos of me working, but they're not all great.
Yeah.
But it's just fun. I mean, it's fun the crew is so tight, and if someone wants to take a picture of me, they're more than welcome to. But I almost never ask for photos with people. I'm usually the one taking them.
Yeah.
I just sort of feel like that's me. My proof that I met somebody is a nice photograph of them. Like it's the selfie is the new autograph for celebrities. And I'm like, if I get a good picture of you, that means I was there and I may have met you, and that's good enough for me. So I try not to. I'd rather have a photo album of people than pictures of me with people. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Like on set, it's just you're doing your job, being a professional, and that's it. But when you're off set, like I've seen your Instagram, and I know you've worked with some of the cast, like on sets that aren't even
Right.
for the show. So what's it like getting to know the cast once you shot them during the show and just afterwards off set?
It's great, and that's sort of my goal, is just to build the trust. I mean, even if I never see them off set, I still want them to trust me on set. So if I get up in your face, you know that there's a reason why I'm there. I'm going for a certain type of shot, and the crew, I mean, the cast really does trust me, and I think every one of them I've had enough conversation with, and just chit chat day to day, that they know who I am. A lot of them follow me, so they know that what I do, and every picture that they've seen that come out of the show has been quality. So they know I'm not just some new guy that just bought a camera from the store. So they let me do their thing. And I think I had mentioned to a couple of the cast members this season that, like, hey, let's do some photos, and it turned out amazing. Like, it just, I mean, a little bit of luck, obviously, but the fact that I came in with my own lighting and no real plan, we made a great photo shoot come out of it. So it's been it is kind of my long-term goal, is to shoot more, and with when I control the lighting and the environment, sort of a celebrity portraiture style of editorial shoots. I mean, I love being on set, but if I can come in and do a 3-hour job and shoot somebody and be out of there, it's sort of what I'm attracted to a little more. But I do love the crew and the cast and the set mentality and that life of long days, some days. Not every day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But trust is huge. Yes, I mean, it's trust from the producers, from the actors, from the studio, obviously, that's hiring me. They want to know that they can just let me go and do my thing, and they know that something's going to come out of it that's going to be quality.
Right. Yeah. And last question before we wrap up. This is kind of not even photography related. It's really so much about the show itself. As yourself, which dojo in the series would you see yourself most in?
Wow. Probably Miyagi-Do. I'm real big on routine, and I'm strict with myself. I feel like there's something that I like, the old school teachings, the Mr. Miyagi's way. My wife is half Korean. I've sort of appreciate the Korean and Japanese lifestyle, and that sort of, I sort of feel like, Eagle Fang's maybe a little more loose, a little more free form, and obviously Cobra. I'm too nice to be in Cobra Kai. I'm a nice, helpful, strict routine. I have my ways. Everything's got its place. I'm pretty organized. So I feel like maybe Miyagi-Do would be my dojo, and I like the colors better too.
Yeah, I should have worn this today then.
Oh yeah, I may have one of those later. I got my sweatshirt on, but that's about. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, that sweatshirt. The whole cast and crew are wearing them. It's badass. See, like, that looks so cool.
Thank you, Frank, in the costume department, because I can't do this backwards, but there's.
Oh, that's awesome.
It has the season 4 costume department there. That was from our season 4 wrap gift. So that was a nice, and it's warm. It's cold in Atlanta right now. So got a lot of hats and pictures and headbands, and I got a whole pile of stuff. Like I got to make a display case or something for all the wrap gifts. But
definitely, yeah.
Different departments make different things, for everybody. And I still keep saying I'm going to make a stills department wrap gift for my 1-person department, but I got to figure out what it's going to be and what everybody would want, and if I can afford it. So
yeah, definitely. Well, Curtis, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you going in detail with the stills and your experience. It's been really really awesome to learn all of this. And yeah, I really appreciate your time.
It's been great. Thanks for having me so much.
For sure. So if you guys make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out any new videos. Don't forget, me and Curtis are signing off. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.